After the end of World War II, the climate of worldwide conflict changed, and the dawn of the Cold War altered the direction of military strategy. The United States saw a need to establish an agency to conduct worldwide intelligence gathering operations and to engage in espionage and counter-terrorism. During the war, the Office of Strategic Services occupied this role. After the war, the National Security Act of 1947 officially established the Central Intelligence Agency with the intent to expand these operations and create a formal authority to oversee covert activities worldwide. One of the first missions tasked of the new agency was to study behavioural engineering and mind control. Project MKUltra is thought to have first begun in 1953, and for nearly 20 years the CIA's program would see countless unsuspecting Americans exposed to drugs, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, abuse and torture. It wasn't until the Church Committee congressional hearings in 1975 that many of the CIA's activities from MKUltra would come to light. Project MKUltra wasn't the first sanctioned government program to study torture and brainwashing. Early experiments into mind control during World War II were conducted by US intelligence officials and former Nazi scientists under the name Operation Paperclip. More harm than good came from Paperclip, but the possibilities of mind control were too great for the CIA to ignore. US prisoners of war in Korea spoke of various techniques being used by the Chinese and North Koreans for mind control, and the United States didn't want to be left behind. To show commitment to the program, the CIA was authorised to commit 6% of their entire operating budget to Project MKUltra, with no guidelines or oversight as to how it was spent. Dr. Sidney Gottlieb was tasked to head the project, which would officially begin in 1953. Over 44 different colleges and universities were used in Project MKUltra. In addition, numerous hospitals, prisons, and pharmaceutical companies were paid by the CIA front companies to conduct various experiments without raising suspicion. In total, over 80 separate research entities were paid through various CIA sub-programs to conduct the experiments, and most of the researchers had no idea why they were running the experiments or for whom they were working. The goal of MKUltra was to examine methods of controlling and influencing the mind, primarily for the extraction of information from resistant subjects during interrogation. There were nearly 100 additional experiments: the feasibility of a brainwashed Manchurian candidate, the testing of drugs to cause amnesia, paralysis, and the inability to perform physical activity. MKUltra also sought to find substances to cause paralysis, stimulate the effects of alcohol, to increase paranoia, or to cause brain damage. This was just the tip of the iceberg for MKUltra. The experimentation did not stop there. The early efforts of MKUltra involved the testing of lysergic acid dithalamide, LSD. First synthesised in 1938, the effect and power of LSD was still largely unknown by the 1950s. CIA operatives wanted to know if foreign intelligence agents could be made to defect against their will, and conversely, if the same could be applied to the United States operatives. Finding thousands of willing test subjects for such a massive program while maintaining secrecy would be difficult. Officials determined the best way to conduct experimentation without arousing public suspicion or tipping off the enemy was to not tell anybody, even the subjects. The subjects least likely to put up a fight were chosen. Nursing homes, prisons, and mental hospitals were popular sources for test subjects. LSD would be administered to doctors, military personnel, CIA agents, and members of the general public, in most cases without their knowledge. LSD was not the only drug used during Project MKUltra. Many drugs were experimented with in the various tests, including but not limited to heroin, morphine, MDMA, mescaline, sodium pentanol, alcohol, and marijuana. Doctors also experimented with drug combinations. Hypnosis was a large part of the program. The CIA recruited noted Scottish psychiatrist Dr. Ewan Cameron, who had been experimenting with reprogramming the human psyche by erasing memories. Some of the experiments were inhumane and secretive enough to warrant the CIA moving Cameron's operations to Canada, away from the US jurisdiction and the media's eyes. Cameron's methods would involve putting patients into drug-induced comas for several weeks while playing loops of repetitive noises or sounds. He would use electroshock therapy at 30 to 40 times the normal power. He would use sensory deprivation, locking patients in a room with no stimulus for weeks at a time. There was significant collateral damage from these experiments. Cameron's patients would become incontinent, start to develop amnesia, and in the most extreme cases, forget who their parents were or even how to talk. Throughout his career, Cameron insisted he had honourable intentions of researching methods to correct schizophrenia through the programming of the psyche. But the string of discarded patients who became permanently disabled under his care tell a different tale. The Watergate scandal in 1972 would start to bring major government impropriety to the public's attention. Sensing the growing heat, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered the cancellation of Project MKUltra and the immediate destruction of all associated documents and files. Helms was on the money. A New York Times article in December of 1974 would allege the CIA had conducted illegal domestic activities on unsuspecting American victims. This article prompted an investigation by Congress into the allegations, and a committee was appointed to head the investigation. Senator Frank Church was appointed the chair of the committee, named for him. Despite Helms's destruction order, some 20,000 documents relating to Project MKUltra survived the CIA's purge. The documents escaped because they were financial and stored elsewhere. Being financial in nature, the documents would reveal little other than the players involved and how much was spent. The real documents during the investigation would come from interviews conducted by the Church Committee or those involved with Project MKUltra. In 1977, the US Senate released a report on the findings of Project MKUltra. Senator Ted Kennedy revealed to the US the CIA had indeed been testing on unwitting citizens, that the tests involved LSD, and there had been known deaths from the activities. The CIA would later admit the tests made little scientific sense since, among other reasons, the agents doing the monitoring of MKUltra were not qualified scientific observers. Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, the person responsible for MKUltra, has said little on the record about the program other than admitting at his retirement in 1972 the results were useless. A follow-up report from the US General Accounting Office in 1984 would reveal that between 1940 and 1974, the CIA exposed thousands of human test subjects to hazardous substances. Of course, with no remaining programmed documents and a few witnesses willing to talk, more expect the numbers to be much higher. Official documents state Project MKUltra was terminated in 1973, although later evidence suggested the program merely continued on under a different name. This type of program is still very much alive. I myself am a victim, as are millions of targeted individuals worldwide. The torture must stop. Spread the word. Thank you.